They Live.
Gotta watch that again.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, me either. I mean, I don't think it's gonna get better watching it. That's not me slagging it off because I like that movie.
I mean, how much better can perfection get?
Not too much.
Perfection can't get any better than perfection. No, I think the last time I saw They Live was at a Alamo Draft House. Yikes.
Yeah, man.
Yikes.
That you were still going there. It must be some time ago.
It was when the one in Omaha hadn't opened yet, and so we had been invited to like a pre-opening thing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's a fucking movie theater. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, man.
They're not curing fucking world hunger. They're screening movies for nerds.
How's my level?
You sound great.
Good.
You ready to talk Black Sabbath?
Let's go, brother.
Okay, because this is the episode. Yeah, that's how we start now. I haven't told you. Oh, you. That's right. So I just like hit the record button and I have like a cold open. So this is the best kind. So you're part of it.
Are we doing this now?
We're in it. Are we in it now? Yeah, we're in it now.
This isn't live, right?
No, this isn't live.
Okay. Don't let him mislead you. If this is actually going on the fucking air.
Father Malone, it's been a minute since you were on the Culture Cast. We went an entire Elvis month.
Yes, that I was unfortunately able to attend because I programmed the fucking thing. But then again, I feel like I would have just been defending the movies the entire time. So
that's what I wanted to mention. Yeah, you would have been defending the movies the entire time.
I'm not going to defend it now.
Oh, no, I'm not asking you to because they're indefensible. Indefensible pieces of garbage. No, they're not pieces. They're not pieces of garbage. They're a commodity film.
Certainly.
Right. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
no.
But you know what's funny though? No. Speaking of films, how many of these kinds of movies have we talked about?
Anthology horror?
I know, right?
I know we could have just started another podcast dedicated to anthologies.
We talked about it at one point. We floated the idea.
We did. I think when Creepshow, when the series sort of debuted, we thought about it then.
Farted out though.
Yeah, because
it's not good.
Creepshow put the damper on my enthusiasm for anthology for just a little while there. Although nothing can truly put the damper on the anthologies because I will watch them above all other horror movies.
Really?
Yeah. I'm kind of a proponent of, particularly with horror, and this sort of goes to literature as well. There's something about, and this isn't my idea, this is Edgar Allan Poe's idea. There's something about the totality of reading the whole thing at once.
Sure. I agree 100%.
And particularly with horror, where you need to sort of get in and sort of get the mood and then hit them hard and then sort of back out, which isn't to say long form is not or cannot be as effective. Sometimes you like to get to know the character before they get eviscerated, 150 pages in. But the other thing with short stories, and we know this from all the other podcasts that we do about anthology type horror is, if that story sucked, the next one will be better,
At least you hope.
Yeah, that's true. But
tell that to Father Malone and Chris of Chronicles from the Crypt fame, especially in that later seasons of that show. They were you'll be begging for death by the end. By the end of it, we were like, can this just end already? Because if we're not at the bottom, we're real close.
We're real close. But having said that, that's kind of a special case where that was just a cash cow that kept going. I think most of these things flame out when they're still at least a little bit vital and they still haven't given up all their best stuff yet. And, as long as you've got 3 or more stories to an anthology, you're guaranteed to get one that you'll enjoy. And
that leads us to Black Sabbath. I was going to say that there it is.
Come closer, please. I've something to tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you do? This is Black Sabbath.
is that the case here? Well, we're talking about Black Sabbath from 1963, not the band, though the band's name is inspired by the movie. They saw the name on the billboard on the movie theater, and they saw how many people were lined up, and they said people must want to listen to this band.
Well, they used to be Earth, I believe.
Right.
Before they were
terrible
Black
name.
Sabbath, yeah.
Terrible
name. Black Sabbath is so much better.
I mean, Black Sabbath, again, yeah, most people don't know that the name comes from a movie. They just know the name of the band. Is that a bad thing? In this case, no, because Black Sabbath also happens to be a great band.
Certainly.
If Black Sabbath sucked, that might be the other way, and that might not be the case.
You know, it's funny, Chris. You asked me to be on this program many months ago, and you gave me a list of what was going down in October. And I saw Black Sabbath, and I went, "Yeah, I'll take Black Sabbath." And I actually thought I was agreeing to talk about the movie Black Sunday.
Oh yeah, the one with the lady gets the mask nailed on her face.
Yeah,
that's what I thought we were watching too.
And then this came on, and I mean, I know the movie. I own this movie. But I was like, I mean, I'll talk about this one, but like, and the funny thing is, it's the same director, Mario Bava, did both of those films. So, you know, they're kind of interchangeable, like as far as title and director go.
Yeah, I thought we were watching that movie as well, which again, like you said, I've never seen that movie. So,
I like that. I like that movie quite a bit.
Is it better than this movie?
Yes, easily. Yeah, it's Bava a little more free to kind of do what he does. This film, I'm sure you've read the same sort of production notes that I did. You know, was a co-production, like an Italian-American co-production. There's probably some other country in there as well. So I think he felt a little bound to try and rein in his crazier aspects or his crazier instincts, which is a shame because when he gets going, I love Mario Bava. I think he, you know, whenever you mention Italian horror, you're going to hear about his son, Lamberto Bava, who did Demons and a whole bunch of other shit movies.
But Demons, right? I mean,
the first Demons is good.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty meta.
Yeah, it is extremely meta. And of course, you know, you say Italian horror, everyone says Argento, which no question, Dario Argento is a fucking king of sort of surrealist horror. But I think Bava was always better than both of those guys. And you know, there are dozens of other filmmakers I'm not mentioning that some nerd is out there raging about right now that I'm not mentioning them. But Bava, in addition to what he could do in horror, he could also sort of go to other genres as well. And this is kind of the same genre, but I'm sure you've seen Planet of the Vampires.
No.
Which you definitely need to see.
This is my second Bava film.
Oh, okay.
After whatever I just watched, Twitch of the Death Nerve,
which I like as well.
A Bay of Blood.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie.
The movie I would encourage you to watch of his, and I would encourage everyone within the sound of my voice, is a film called Danger Diabolic, which is an adaptation of an Italian comic, or maybe it was French comic book about this master thief, and it is in fucking sane. A great movie. One of my favorite final shots in any movie ever. And the production design is cuckoo beyond belief. The Beastie Boys like stole whole portions of this movie for their video for Body Movin', like, you know, 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. And it's beyond compare. So anyway, we're going to talk about Black Sabbath clearly, but if you have to go watch a Bava movie, go watch that movie first. It's not a horror movie at all. It's kind of like a superhero movie, but the superhero just wants to steal as much gold and corrupt and destroy the governments of the world's financial supplies.
If you were to tell someone to watch an Argento film, which one would you tell them? Suspiria?
Every time, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the perfect like distillation of what he was about, where ultimately in Argento movies, the plot doesn't really matter a whole lot.
No.
And it's all about mood. And I think with that movie, that tone which hits you right in the face at the beginning, just her at the airport, and nothing is going on, is kind of unsettling and horrifying. And then he just carries that right through to the end. And I think it pays off at the end better than his other films. Although some of the other films I think have more interesting plots.
That's fair.
But that one, just as a piece, was fantastic.
And the remake's not half bad.
No, I like the remake. I like the remake for obviously different reasons. I think they recognized we need to do something like so far afield and try not to ape it at all. And I think they came up with pretty good.
I agree. I mean, if you go listen to the episode that I did many moons ago, whenever that was, like 2018, I did not like it. But since then, I now own it on Blu-ray, and I own the soundtrack on vinyl because the soundtrack is also amazing.
Yeah.
And it is one of the better modern horror movies that's been made. It's not even really a horror movie. Like,
no, not that one.
To call it a horror movie is to do the film a massive injustice. Kind of like The Exorcist. To call it a horror movie is to kind of not cut at the point of what the movie is, which is more than one thing. I don't think Suspiria is going to end up in the AFI, but I guess it might. It is. Yeah.
It's for
the dancing alone, I guess, probably.
Yeah, man, that stuff is good. And I'm in love with Dakota Johnson, so
what can I tell you? I mean, hey, Don Johnson and who's Melanie? Who is
Melanie Griffith?
That's what I thought. But I thought for some reason Melanie Griffith was with Antonio Banderas.
She was after Don Johnson.
Okay, that's okay. So I'm not wrong. It's just the timing. Okay,
right. I don't know that they're still together anymore.
I have no idea. How could you?
Who cares?
Melanie Griffith with either. Those are either fantastic picks. I mean, holy shit! Both men who have aged beyond gracefully into their older years, too. My lord.
But at the same time, they were extremely lucky because they got Melanie Griffith, who, oh my god,
is Melanie Griffith.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
like right around Blowout and Something Wild, like that Melanie Griffith.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
So Black Sabbath is an anthology movie that has 3 stories. Father Malone, before we get into those stories, not saying which ones, how many of them are successful and how many of them aren't?
I think there's.
I wonder how close our answers are going to be because I don't know. I have a kind of an interesting take on this one.
I think there's one that works, but it only works in Italian because I watched both versions.
Wow. Okay.
And I think one of them is kind of close, but no cigar, and then one that I think is irretrievable.
So let's start out with. Actually, before we get into it, I think that there is one that works, but it's not like the greatest anthology segment I've ever seen.
Right.
There's one that goes on way too long.
Way too long. Okay.
We're talking like you could have realigned the other two for 10 more minutes each, and still probably it would have been too long.
Yeah.
And then the's one that's just.
Kind
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of there. Kind of does its thing and then gets out, and you're like, okay.
So let's just go in reverse order, which I think our order is going to be. So let's talk about the Wordulac first, which is the final story.
Yes.
And let's talk about it first also because it features Boris Karloff in the story. He also plays the...
Yeah, you should point out that he's also like this narrator, but he's an on-screen narrator, which is kind of unusual for an anthology film where somebody comes in and talks to us. I mean, I think they picked him because he was doing that show Thriller, which is what he did every single week. Like,
that's fair.
And go, say like, "Hi, everybody, it's Boris Karloff.
Trot me out for a little dancing." Like,
yeah.
I mean, look, hey, you know what? God bless the man. He kind of always looks like Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, Mr. Henry Pratt, Mr. Boris Karloff, always welcome. No matter what.
Yeah, I mean, no different than Bela Lugosi, frankly. Like, you're one of, if not, you are something that is so iconic. Nobody envisions that character other than you as that character, and there are a few people like that.
Everything is in comparison to it.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, you're not as good as Bela Lugosi, who was, outside of Nosferatu, essentially the second most famous vampire. So there you go. So yeah, Boris Karloff is in this story as a part of the story.
Yeah,
and he plays a ghoul is what he is, right?
He's a Werdulac.
But these are ghouls, right?
Well, that they're Werdulacs,
right? But I'm using a Tales from the Crypt comparison.
No, because
remember GHOULS ghouls.
Oh my god, it was really, really, really bad. No, I don't think they're ghouls because they feast on the flesh of the blood of the living, whereas ghouls are carrion eaters.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, but in that episode, they eat that guy who's alive, though.
Right. And I called it out then, and I'll call it out now.
That's fair.
That was bullshit. Like, if they killed him and then started to eat him, like, after maybe 20 minutes, then, maybe they were just like, the sushi eaters of the ghoul world. But what's featured here in this one are just bloodsuckers.
It's a vampire.
Yeah, it's a type of vampire. A Verdelak is, was it Czechoslovakia, I think?
It's a Slavic vampire.
Yeah. They're all kind of Slavic vampires.
I was about to say, isn't the strain that's like Slavic vampires too, right? The Guillermo del Toro. I don't know if you've seen that. I don't know. I
watched maybe 2 episodes.
It's pretty good.
It was okay. It was all right.
But vampires are hard to do in modern times.
Yeah,
believe
Dracula himself is a Slav. I mean, like, let's face it,
Vania.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no,
but the best ones come from Vulcanvania.
I thought you were going to bring up Transylvania
5,000. Yeah,
Christ, no. Yeah, Vulcanvania. My God, oof. There's only one thing that comes from Vulcanvania, and it's a man with a penis for a nose.
Put out that dog rocket.
I feel like you actually appreciate that movie.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think there were restraints put on that movie that kept it from being as crazy as it wanted to be. I think it's kind of an achievement how crazy he got it to be. And I'm always a fan of Dan Aykroyd's weird, squirming mind. Like,
Dan Aykroyd, though, he's a trip.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a shame that like your generation and younger mainly know him from vodka and crazy UFO stories and
Ghostbusters.
And Ghostbusters, yeah, right.
Because of the branding. Right. The branding rights alone will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams.
But like watching Aykroyd on the old Saturday Night Live when he's like 19 years old and like fucking like knocking everything out of the park is something special. And then he fucking they wrote The Blues Brothers, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like that's a perfect movie to me, honestly.
That's great bass. When I think of Dan Aykroyd and SNL, that's what I think of.
The incredible Mohawk Master.
The Bassmatic 76. Yeah. God.
That's the whole bass.
Right. I will tell you about setting this segment where they said it, using who they used. It feels like a sly wink and a nod, obviously, right?
Yep.
Yuck, yuck, yuck. Boris Karloff is Frankenstein. Let's get him to play Dracula. Yeah. Big mistake.
Yeah, this one's bad, right?
This is like unequivocally one of the worst anthology segments I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's so plotting.
It's plotting, and then it's like somehow overly plotted and not plotted enough. Like there are parts in this where I rewound going, did I miss something? Like particularly the payoff at the end when they where they're like, all these people are like surrounding her, like, why did you leave us? Why did you leave us? And I'm like, did she leave them? Like,
I didn't understand that either.
And other than Boris Karloff, who was clearly a Verdelak from the moment he walked on screen.
You're talking about when he walked on screen at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
when he's the narrator.
He's always been a Verdelak. We just didn't know it.
I mean, isn't that the joke that he makes the thing with the mirror?
Yeah, pretty much.
Where he like looks at the mirror, he's like, they can't see their reflection, and he's like, oh shit. Like
but like the rest of the family that are saying, why did you leave us, are all brand new converts to the Verdelak life. And so even if she had left them, and she kind of cops to like leaving, like I had to go, like he loved me. And I'm like, we are not privy to the actual plot of this because no one's bothering to tell us.
Yeah, it's not a story that I would ever choose to revisit willingly because it's just not well told. And the story that they're telling is not like it's complicated or even particularly unique. You have a rich guy who falls in love with a poor girl, like a peasant girl whose family ends up getting turned into Werdulaks by the patriarch of the family.
Pretty much.
That's, it's way more complicated than it needs to be.
It is, and I like the idea of the Vertilac. Like, I like the idea of a creature that just feeds on the ones that it loves.
Right? Sure.
That's
something
potent. Like that's something we could sink your teeth into. And they didn't really play with that at all.
No. The first time you see Gorka, he's already a Vertilac.
Right. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a whole lot of nothing this episode. And as you said, like, and it takes for fucking ever to get there. Like, we're going with this first. Now, I believe that in the Italian version, this is the first one.
Right.
And I think, no, because I think it was.
It's the second. I think it's the second one.
Is it?
I think the drop of water's last.
Yes. In the Italian version. It is.
Yeah. So the first one. For some reason. Yeah. And which is a real shame in the order alone, because they're just like, hey, we're going to open with the best one. And oh, by the way, it's all downhill from
here. Yeah, exactly. Or like even if it wasn't, like, it is kind of like the most shocking, certainly, like the ending. Like, if they were going to grab hold of the audience at all, it was probably with this one. It's like if they started Creepshow with something not something to tide you over, but they're creeping up on you. Like, let's start with the roaches, like,
right.
Well, where do you go from there? Like, that's the sort of height of like panic and gross outedness. But like putting it here, I mean, I guess it makes sense in that when the Americans re-edited it, they were like, well, we got to save Karloff for last.
Right. Yeah. That to me seemed like the reason it's the last one is because it's Boris Karloff, and that's he's like the only recognizable actor in the entire movie.
Yeah,
at least for Americans.
Yeah, sure. But what a mistake! Like, I mean, put this one second, maybe, and then we can kind of go, well, that was all right, but let's get on to something good now. Don't close with the worst thing.
No, and closing with the longest one makes it stand out even more.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're just like, okay, like,
yeah,
it's the longest one, it's the worst one, and in the American one, it's the last one. So
it's bad.
All bad. Yeah. It's just, and again, the story it's telling isn't particularly exciting or compelling. It's a pretty generic, by the numbers story.
Yeah, and this is 63. And I thought, like, one of the interesting ideas in this anthology was that Bava wanted to do sort of an 18th, 19th, and 20th century stories.
Right.
And for me, like, 1963, it makes sense to do this story, like, set in the 18th century. But like, like, as much as people praise like Hammer horror movies, which, I love them, and I love how sort of stylized and kind of cuckoo they could be. Like, they were all kind of mired in the, like, horror took place 100 years ago or 150 years ago. Like, some of the later Hammer movies, like, I can't even really watch. I'm just like, can we just get into the 20th century already with the horror? Like,
I mean, Frankenstein, Dracula, they all take place in the 1800s.
Right. So, like, I don't know why it lodged in people's brains like that's the era for it. But like, and not that I can't relate to people from that era, but like,
it's not as easy. Yeah. Unless it's Hugh Jackman playing Van Helsing, you can't. And I get it.
Such a good movie.
I mean, I have gone on the record, and I will say it again, that I think the best sequel to The Mummy is Van Helsing.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it is the exact same style. And
if you look at them that way, they're great companion pieces.
There you go.
Because, hey, one doesn't have the mummy and the other one does. Yeah. And that's like almost all the monsters except for Creature. And I guess Bride of Frankenstein.
Right. Was she? Oh, yeah. She was not in it, was she?
No, it was probably for the sequel.
Right. Yeah. There you go. That was the plan.
The sequel.
And I got no problem, with the like a period piece for a horror movie. I think there've been some good ones. That TV series Penny Dreadful is set in the 19th century, and I fucking love that show. But this one, like, it's for the Vertilac, it is a mistake in every possible capacity. Like,
yeah, I agree.
The setting, the plot, the characters, the horror, it's all mediocre at best.
Mediocre at best, and the worst out of these three at worst.
Right. So
yeah, on its own, it's not great, but at a comparison of these three, it's
that we talk about that a lot because we watch anthology series, but like that's the risk you run when you're going to stack stories next to each other. It all comes down to comparison. Sometimes that makes stories better, but in this case, it makes it far worse. Like you said, like if this had been a standalone episode of a series, we'd have been like, it's okay.
And I can't give them a pass because, again, a human being edited this.
Right.
A human being directed this. Someone cut it back together. I'm sorry, but this was a choice that they made. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I like Bava as a director, I think is like always interesting. And it seems like he's kind of hamstrung by the time period here, although he does get some interesting stuff. Like as much as I'm complaining about the like why did you leave us sequence, you know, at the very end, like it got really interesting, like with the theatrical lighting and the, you know, sort of, the focus dissolves. Like I thought that was at least something to recommend this episode, and I kind of thought it when it was happening, I was like, well, at least that was good. So that's what I'm gonna say about this one. Well,
and it's at least there's something interesting in the episode, at least a little bit of something,
right?
Stylistically, stylistically, it's interesting at the end.
Yeah, this thing is not a total loss, but it's in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next one, and I think this is the one that I think you said works in Italian, and this is the one that for me is just okay.
This must be the telephone.
Yeah, the telephone, which is the second one in the American release, and possibly the first one in the Italian.
Yeah. No, it's second in the Italian.
Okay.
I mean. No, I think you're right. I think it's first in the Italian. I think they go backwards in time.
Okay, gotcha. So a woman is getting calls from a man who is her pimp that is recently escaped from prison.
And she put him there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the American version, he's supposedly dead.
Right.
Which makes no sense.
None at all.
Because, when, again, having seen both versions, it makes no sense in American. It makes literally no sense.
None at all, because
he's very much alive. And it's never explained how he is alive.
And we're supposed to believe he was a ghost or something, but still is able to get stabbed and strangle people with nylons. And
she murders him.
Yeah. Okay. In the American version, woman comes home receiving these sort of threatening phone calls that he wants to see her, and he can see everything, and like no matter what she does to like close windows and doors, like he still like is on to everything she's up to, and calls her friend Mary to come like give her a hand. And Mary and her relationship in the American one is not really explained other than they're friends. And like at one point, this is my favorite part of it, and this is like a massive discrepancy between this version and the Italian version. Like at one point, the lead character Rosie is looking at a letter, and the words are appearing on the letter, like it's the threat from the ghost, like, you know, well, like it's almost time, you can't escape me, kind of a thing. But even in the reverse shot, you can tell it's a piece of newspaper she's reading. And in the Italian version, it's an article telling her that her pimp has escaped from prison. So that makes no sense in the American version. And then,
unless you are assuming the way that they're telling the story is that he's dead.
Right.
Which again, makes no sense.
Right. The differences between the versions are like fundamental. It's really weird. So Mary comes over, dresses like Rosie as like a decoy, drugs her so she falls asleep, then writes her a letter explaining that she gave her a tranquilizer and that she's seeking psychiatric help for her because she clearly needs it. Frank shows up. Now, this is the ghost we've been talking about, but it's clearly a guy. He strangles Mary. Rosie stabs him to death. And then the voice reappears on the phone. I will never leave you. But none of it makes any sense at all.
No.
In the Italian version, she finds that bit of newspaper, realizes she didn't know who the voice was on the phone. Once she reads the newspaper and realizes her pimp, Frank, who she helped convict, is now on the loose. It must be him. Calls Mary. Mary shows up, is a little more handsy in the Italian version. Mary is with Rosie. And then makes her go to sleep, does the decoy thing, and then writes her a letter that says, not I tranquilized you, but I couldn't handle the fact that you left me, and I want you back so badly. And I'm sorry I tricked you by pretending to be Frank. I saw the article that he was released and wanted to get back together with you and knew that you would reach out to me basically if if that were the case, at which point Frank shows up, strangles her to death, she stabs him, and then she kind of loses her mind, and that's the end. And it makes so much more sense, the Italian version. Like, clearly
it actually makes sense.
Yeah, the Americans were like, we can't have any hint of lesbianism in this one, so let's take that out of the case.
No gay, no way to the gay, man. Yeah. No way to the gay.
And you know what? 1963 America, I get it. I get them trying to excise that.
Oh, sure.
But then they're fucking possessed of this notion that horror has to be supernatural, which, by the way, is my idea. But here, this was just a thriller segment in the middle of their thing. But they were like, let's throw in a ghost because ghosts.
No gays, only ghosts.
Yes, exactly. We approve of the undead, not the living love between two humans.
The living gay love of two actual human beings cannot be shown on screen. But let's have a woman murder a man in cold blood.
Yeah. And he's a ghost already somehow, because none of this now makes sense, because we had to force those elements, the most fundamental elements of the story, we excised.
Right. The fact that he is dead changes the way the story is interpreted 100%.
Right. But the Italian version is great. I like the direction here is much more Mario Bava. It's very interesting. I like that actress. I don't know if she's acting well. I just think she's very attractive.
It's hard to tell sometimes when the language is not when it's not a native language, you just never know.
Right. So I'm assuming she was really good. I'm sure if I was watching American Pie in Italian, I would think Shannon Elizabeth might be a good actress. I don't know.
It's fair. We almost do see breasts in this film, which I found to be quite shocking.
Oh, the scene with the towels when he's oh my God, it was fantastic. Anyway, I sound like a pig.
No, it's in the time and place that this movie came out, it is surprising.
Yes, it's very surprising. And I like the female form. Sue me. But so like the Italian version of this story makes it my favorite in the entire thing. But that's not what we were looking at, because we weren't watching whatever the Italian name was, which is too long and complicated for me to possibly recollect or pronounce. But in Black Sabbath,
The Three Faces of Fear.
That's it. There you go. But what's in Italian? Don't bother. The DVD I own downstairs of Black Sabbath has this version, and it's a failure because it makes zero sense. Like,
literally, it makes zero sense and none. They take the story and completely waste it.
So, like, the things that only become better when the story makes sense are now not a detriment, but they are meaningless. Like, the way that it's directed and acted don't mean a thing because it's so confused about what's happening.
Yeah. It is like dressing the set incorrectly and having your actors come out in period piece. Like, it makes no sense. You've changed the inherent meaning of the story before the actors can even do anything.
And, the other thing that sort of irks me about them doing that, this is one of the very first sort of examples of like terror by telephone. Like, there hadn't been many.
Have you checked the children?
Exactly, like that. That would really take off a few years later. Well, in this case, and that what you're talking about is from like 79, but like 2 years later, I think William Castle did a movie called I Know What You Did, which was sort of a reversal of the person calling and threatening you. It was two girls just pranking people by calling them and telling them, "I know what you did and I know who you are." And they accidentally call like an actual murderer who just buried his wife in the backyard, and he's like determined to find them. So this one kind of kicks off a genre that ended up like like you look at something like Scream, which was,
I was about to say that's the one, right?
Yeah, and that's all about this sort of thing. So,
and we're still going strong 25 years later.
Mm-hmm. So, this one's my favorite Italian, and it's not my least favorite in this series, even with all of its confusing, weird misdirection. The Vertilac is still worse than this.
Yeah, I would agree. At least this is, I think what redeems this is it's not as long.
Not as long and way more stylish.
Yeah, the Vertilac feels very workmanlike.
It does, it feels like just enough. It feels as like a Corman film set in a period.
Yeah, like this is fine, but not more than that.
It's okay. Yeah, it didn't offend me, but it wasn't anything to write home about.
So let's talk about the first one in the American one and the last one in the Italian, A Drop of Water. And it's all about that face.
It really is.
Mark Begley mentioned it before we talked about this, and he was right. There is one thing in A Drop of Water that's freaky, and it's that face.
And it is featured a lot, man.
they get the most out of it, man. It doesn't
get less shocking.
No.
Yeah. It like the first time you see it, it's horrifying. The last time you see it, it's horrifying, and they show it a lot in between. So that's kind of a huge win.
It looks very Captain Howdy.
Yeah, sure does. And it's a mask, clearly, right? I mean,
I thought it was like a puppet or like a dummy with a fake. Yes.
Yeah, like
I assume it's not. I assume it is not a real person's face. Yes.
Right.
Which, if it is, I mean, that's a Lon Chaney level of piano wire nonsense, right?
Or it was just they found the ugliest, scariest person on earth and went, "We want to put you in a movie." And she was like, "Right on, let's do it."
So the female Michael Berryman is what you're saying. Close enough.
Yeah, I have eyes.
I mean, this story is pretty, I'm not going to say generic, but pretty boilerplate. It's just a telltale heart.
Very simple. Yeah. I mean, so simple that I think when I would criticize in other stories, it doesn't seem to matter here. Like when you have a particularly a character piece and it's one or two characters, like I want to know more about those people. Here, I didn't need to know anything.
Right.
And I never found it lacking in that regard. Like,
no, the story it tells is pretty straightforward. A woman, a doctor or a nurse comes to take a elderly woman, I guess,
like they're prepping her
for burial.
Yeah, exactly.
And she takes the woman, the maid tells her not to take anything. Of course, what does the woman do? She takes a ring, and then Telltale Heart style, she hears a dripping of water. And unlike in the Telltale Heart, where it's, you don't know if it's actually supernatural or just in the character's head, this one, the ghosts actually, imagine if a Telltale Heart, whatever's making the Telltale Heart beat kills the person. That's essentially what it is. That's the conceit of this entire story.
And if somebody had warned the narrator of Telltale Heart, like, that old man that you're working for is heavy into the supernatural. Be careful around that guy.
They like to use Ouija boards all the time.
Yeah, constantly talking to the dead. Talking to the dead, how ridiculous.
And then the dead talk back. I mean, that's the conceit of this one.
Yeah.
And it works.
Don't mess with the with forces you don't understand.
Sometimes dead is better. It's a good story. Again, it doesn't break any molds, but it takes a stock narrative that has, tale as old as time. It's Edgar Allan Poe story, for fuck's sake. I mean, and does something a little, it gives it a little twist that it does more than enough.
It does. And here's where I think all the elements kind of come together, including Bava's direction. I think he does some really interesting stuff. Like Bava was at the forefront of the whole giallo movement, which, people think of as like supernatural now, but if you go back and watch them, they're mainly not. They're just thrillers and murder mysteries. And he kind of sets the tone with this, 20-minute little bit of a movie from 1963, like how all of those movies are going to look and be paced after that. I particularly like The Woman's Apartment, like the sort of lighting scheme where the lights just keep flashing on and off and blue and red and like very visually appealing for intense, like actually ratchets up the tension and like the simplest kind of tension going from room to room. Is she going to be in there? Yep, she is. Over and over again.
It's so successful.
Is she behind you? 100% she's behind you.
It's so successful and frankly does so little.
Yeah. It's kind of a neat trick, this particular episode.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best of the three in the American one for sure.
100%. And like, let's lead with our best. Like, what the fuck are you idiots doing?
Yeah. It's real bad. That's a real bad choice. That's a real dumb choice.
I mean, at the very least, start with your incomprehensible telephone episode, like, and then go into this. If you're gonna, if you need Karloff to be at the end, then like let this be the lead in.
Well, what's funny is even with Karloff being at the end, or Boris Karloff, even with Karloff at the end of the film, it's not like it helped the film be successful.
No, no, right. Yeah. I mean, because people were still under the misapprehension that even though we love Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. and by now, nobody actually cared. After Abbott and Costello frolicked with all of those guys, nobody was scared of them anymore. It's
right.
Like the Vertilac could have starred Count Chocula and had a little more cachet than Boris Karloff.
I don't know. Is that too bad? I guess not really. He still has Frankenstein.
He'll always have Frankenstein.
I guess you can never take that away. So
no, man. Like, and there's nothing wrong with 30 years later saying that was it. You know,
that's fair.
I mean, and no offense, like, look, man, like Grinch Who Stole Christmas is still coming up. It's still on the horizon at this point, which I think true. Most people our age, younger and a little bit older, probably know Boris Karloff for that voice and that whatever, because he's unrecognizable as Frankenstein. Like, that is a full great makeup, but that is still him. So I don't know. It's like I said. This is all piggybacking off of his successful Thriller television series. It was like, oh, well, that series is doing good. Like, I guess Boris Karloff is viable. And it's like, no, the series he just so happened to be the host of ended up being appreciated by people. So
yeah, no, I agree. It's having him in this movie ultimately does nothing, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
but he's included because that was the opposite thinking. They thought that this was going to be the biggest. This was probably the biggest get, right? They were like, "This is the biggest fucking get." Like, oh my god, Boris Karloff.
Yeah, I mean, even more than Bela Lugosi at this point, he was still a household name, still associated with horror. But it's not like everyone was running out to see Boris Karloff's latest flick in '63. This is the same year Kennedy was assassinated, for Christ's sake.
I'm not sure what people were running to do, but go see fucking Boris Karloff in a movie is not one of those things.
No, particularly after you could see him at home.
A Nation in Mourning, also going to see Boris Karloff films.
Yeah, man. Like, there was enough horror going on in the world.
Yeah. When the president gets assassinated, all we care about are Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
That's what everybody remembers. Not where they were when JFK died, but where they were when Black Sabbath came out.
That's true. Because I tell you where they were, in the theaters.
Yeah, it's fair. I think for me, I enjoyed this movie overall, but it's not even as good as some of the stuff we talked about on Chronicles.
Oh, no.
This is not nearly as good as even Monster Club, and Monster Club's even not that good on its own.
Right. Like, there are better ones. This one distinguishes itself, I think, in Bava's direction. I think the Italian version is much more worthy a watch. You're going to have to read the subtitles, God forbid. But I know
you ask me to do something so salacious.
Yeah, and the Italian one is on YouTube, so it's like you can get it pretty easily. I would suggest you watch that. It's slightly better than this one as it stands now. Just the American version, it, like you said, it's just passable. Like, if this, like, I saw this movie on Creature Double Feature back on Channel 56 in Boston in the late 70s, and like at that time it was perfectly fine. It's still perfectly fine. It's just not gonna scare you in any actual way. It's all, it's dressed up in the horror cloak. But I would not, if someone were to say, tell me a good anthology film, this is not the one that's going to come to mind first. It might be on the list of 30 or so. Like,
it would be on the list of 30 because I'm not sure if there are more than 40 or 50.
Yeah, if that's the case, if there are only 50, this would be in the 30s.
Yeah.
Is that a good enough classification, all you listeners?
So would you say that you've never seen it?
I have seen it.
Yeah.
Again and again.
You motherfuckers.
Yeah.
What would you say if I told you I'd seen it? I'd say, thanks for the view. You fuck.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay. So is Creepshow the number one for you then?
Easily. Yeah. I like all of those stories. I like all of the direction. I like all of the music. I like all of the writing. Like that movie, I just called Blues Brothers a perfect movie. Fuck it. Creepshow is a perfect movie to me.
What's number two then?
For anthology?
Yeah. Because number one is an obvious. I knew that before I asked you. But that's also, it's a gimme because of how much you love George Romero and how much I know you love that movie. For as long as we've been friends, the things I know you love, that is on the very not long but specific list. Let's just put it that way.
You know, it's funny to me because people will say like, you know, what's your favorite movie? And my stock answer, and probably the truest answer, is Dawn of the Dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know that one too. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, have I seen Dawn of the Dead as much as Creepshow? No, not even nearly.
It's not as fun of a movie it's not as fun of a movie to watch in a lot of ways.
No, it's more involved. It is actual horror. And that, you know, Creepshow is kind of a fun kind of visitation to horror.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a lark.
Yeah. And it has some scary stuff. I mean, look, when I was a kid, it was very scary to me, but, and all horror is scarier when you're a child anyway. Second one, I would probably say Tales from the Crypt, the Amicus production back in 1972. I like that one a great deal.
It's a good one.
There haven't been too many recent anthologies that I've sort of fallen under its spell. I think there was one called, it was like Tales of Halloween, maybe.
Is that a recent one, right?
Yeah, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
Not Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horrors?
No, remarkably not that one.
Have you seen that one?
I have seen that one.
There goes the neighborhood, as Snoop Dogg would say.
Ooh, wow.
What a film.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, I don't know. Like, forced to make a list. Like, I could probably come up with a bunch of really good ones for you to watch. But there
are a fair amount.
Yeah, there are. There are more than you think there are. And I'm a devotee of the Amicus 70s horror anthology.
Oh yeah.
Asylum is really good as far as I'm concerned. Like, I like that one a lot. Robert Bloch wrote that one. Vault of Horror, the direct sequel to Creepshow, to Tales from the Crypt. I like a lot. I know the stories are corny for the most part. I love Monster Club. You know that. We talked about
Monster Club's fun.
Yeah.
It's not amazing, but it also has Vincent Price in it. So does it have to be amazing?
No, and Monster Club is one of the rare ones where the sort of shoe leather in between the stories is more interesting than the stories themselves. That never happens.
Yeah. It's almost the unfortunate part about that movie.
Yeah. Like, I think Creepshow figured out the best format for telling an anthology, which is it's just a comic book and the page is open to the next story. And like, here we go. Like, yes, that makes sense. Like, instead of even Amicus, I made fun of this in the video that I made about Creepshow, but like, it seemed to me that the only way they could figure out to tell these stories was to have the characters from the stories be told that they're in those stories, and then it turns out they're all in hell. That was the same in Tales from the Crypt. It was the same in Vault of Horror. It was the same in Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, which is another really good one, by the way. That one's really good. You should check that out with Peter Cushing.
What about Body Bags?
I'm going to disqualify it as a theatrical film because it was for Showtime.
I thought it was an actual movie.
No, it was going to be, those are the first 3 episodes of a proposed series. And then they were like,
very two-fisted tales of them.
Yeah. So that was the pilot, the way the Tales from the Crypt episode, the first one was like all 3 for one night. That
wow.
Was, yeah. So no, that was never going to be.
It was going to just be hosted by John Carpenter.
Yeah.
I would have watched that.
Yeah. And he directed those 3 because he directed it as like a 90-minute feature, quote unquote. But it was going to be other directors at that time. Here, Two Evil Eyes is technically an anthology movie, even though it's only got 2 stories. I think everyone should check that one out. That's Dario Argento and George Romero, each doing a Edgar Allan Poe story.
Wow.
Which, as it turns out, I just found this out, was also a pilot for a TV series. They were going to do nothing but Edgar Allan Poe stories, and it was going to be all these like fantastic, like up and coming and sort of seasoned horror directors. And they filmed those 2, were told it wasn't going to happen. They, I think, then re-edited. So they put stuff back in that had been pulled out. So it'd be basically 45 minutes each, almost an hour each. But I saw that movie in the theater. So that one counts as an actual theatrical release. Yeah. What are we talking about now?
I think for me, I think Creepshow is probably my answer too.
For number 1, definitely. It's so fun, man. Like this,
it hits all the notes it hits the notes in a way that the other ones don't. It hits the notes in a way that even a show trying to do the same thing can't.
Yeah. And we talk about this a lot when we talk about like the first season of Twilight Zone 85. Like they had this idea like, well, let's just make the stories as long as they need to be. And if this one's 15 minutes and this one's 20 minutes, then we got another 8 minutes. Like, do we have something that's only that long? And like, yeah, let's plug in something that only needs to be 8 minutes. Creepshow skirts a lot of the problems with each segment in the story has to be half an hour. They're like, you end up with 3 stories. Like they were like, let's go for a full 5 and let's just get in and do what we got to do and then get out. Like the Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill pales in comparison as far as running time goes to The Crate, but it didn't need to be The Crate in length. It needed to be Jordy Verrill length. So and that movie is a solid 2 hours, but it's not each segment got 18 minutes. It was this one got 8, this one got 20, this one got 35. Like I like when a filmmaker can figure out, particularly in an anthology situation, how long that story actually has to be, as opposed to let's keep them all at a uniform length.
Well, yeah, because then you get the problems that we've seen, like you said, the really apparent problems of trying to fill in gaps where there wouldn't be gaps if you just made those a little shorter and had a short story.
Yeah, and I think you run the risk of exactly filling in the gaps. Like, okay, well, this story is really 8 minutes long, so let's add a B plot to it and stretch it out. And then it makes people over ambitious in a way where they're like, well, I'll take this, which should be an hour, and I'll just cut it down to half an hour. Like I'll jettison everything that's actually interesting about it and hope people still find it as interesting as I thought at the full length. So, Creepshow just does that, man.
And like you've said, I mean, that's what makes something like Twilight Zone 85, at least the good seasons of it, good, is because unlike something like Black Sabbath, it doesn't feel beholden to do 20 minutes. I mean, I guess Word of Lack's a little longer, but
right, but to the detriment of the thing, like that.
Right, if they to the detriment of the entire thing.
If they were going to do that Vertilac thing, that clearly just should have been its own movie. It seemed like that could have been interesting. Like we said, like there are sort of interesting concepts that they don't even really dive into with that one, which had you structured a 3-act movie around could have been interesting and could have been scary, like on its own. It feels too compressed and not enough at the same time, that particular one.
And I think everything else suffers. I mean, again, some of the other stories suffer for different reasons, but the Word of Lack being as long as it is not great for the overall feeling and pace of the film.
No, it slows it all down when it should be speeding up there at the end.
Right. And especially when you've got Boris Karloff, the thing that you were so excited clearly to have because you trot him out immediately.
Exactly.
So would you skip it or watch it on Black Sabbath?
I'd watch it. I'd watch it, like I said, like on a Sunday afternoon.
But would you watch the American one or the Italian?
Italian one every single time. I'm more likely to recommend this movie in the Italian version.
I would almost say there's no
reason
the
Vertilac has a little bit more to it.
I would say there's no reason to suggest it any other way.
What do you mean? Like as the filmmaker intended? Yeah, probably.
Well, no, I wouldn't suggest anyone watches this in with the English version because it doesn't make any sense. One of the stories is so nonsensical. There's no point to watch it.
Right. And for, in 2021, like completely nonsensical reasons. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
As much as a curiosity as to why they did it at the time, like it doesn't justify how fucked the entire story is.
Right. Because it's either anti-gay and homophobic or just happens to be the case.
Yeah.
What other reason do they have?
Right. And what's funny to me is that they never, it is the combination of the two. It's like, yeah, if you wanted to get rid of the lesbian thing, they could have done that very easily in a dubbed film where they're going to have her write a letter. And in fact, the American one, she does write a letter, except it's like, I cared about you and I didn't want you to, have to deal with this. So I drugged you. Like, right. Okay, fine. Got it. But like, why is it then a ghost? And then, I don't know. That one the American one is confused. Do not watch the American version. Do not watch Black Sabbath. Watch the Three Faces of Fear and however you say that in Italian.
I agree. Again, with Word of Lack just being okay, the other two need to be the best versions of themselves.
Right.
And
you're not getting that in America.
No, you're really not.
So I guess the answer is skip the American version, watch the Italian version.
I agree. Yeah, they're in no uncertain terms, the American version is the lesser film in almost every way.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate because people who saw this in 61 were getting a subpar experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me, like, clearly people just didn't want to go see this movie, but like, you know, horror movies in a lot of cases tend to live or die by word of mouth. Like if hardcore horror fans have gone to see it, they're the ones who are going to go see it. And if they start telling everyone go see it, then you'll probably have a hit on your hands. But with this, nobody wanted to go see Boris Karloff. And then on top of that, they gave us something that nobody wanted to see anyway, no matter who was in it.
Yeah. And yeah, the whole thing with Boris Karloff is just kind of it's like, in my opinion, it's a reinforcement of the people involved making decisions that aren't great.
Right. You know, and we talk about this about, it doesn't matter, anthology, horror in general. You can tell when there's a horror filmmaker at the helm, or horror people involved, and other people who are just trying to make some money because they know horror will sell.
Yeah. And boy, that is the case with this, because the decisions that they made in the American one were made to appease or not piss off American audiences who are apparently big time haters of the gay community.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's funny to me because, like, had they just left that in, and it's only kind of hinted at.
Yeah, they're not making out. They're not doing anything quote unquote salacious.
That could have gotten that word of mouth that a film like this would need. Like, I couldn't believe, like, I'm pretty sure those girls were lesbians. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like 1963, like, we should go see that.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so, yeah, no, it's just more just like, it's in the American one, it's just like, nah, they're just like friends. And then the entire meaning of the story is changed on top of everything else.
Right. And what's funny is I think just their acknowledgement that it was a relationship was as salacious as them making out in 63. So like that could have carried it. Like it could have gotten some sort of buzz going. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I'm with you. I would say skip the American version. Watch the Italian again. Like Father Malone said, it's available on the internet for free. Like most things are, if you try to find them hard enough, you can find almost anything on the internet for free, folks. Even textbooks while you're in college. Take it from me. I like how Quentin Tarantino says that he was influenced by this movie while writing the script for Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all, because it's not like there's
he wanted to do a crime film like Bava did Black Sabbath, an anthology film, you know, because that was the best example to give was Black Sabbath. I want to do a movie like that. Like Tarantino's just trying to be that guy.
Right.
I mean, he's made an entire career of being that guy. He is the popular that guy who could be like, I love that thing. Okay.
Yeah, good for you.
Great.
You got more of it than we did, but
if you're Quentin Tarantino, your mileage with this film is really going to vary, probably in the direction of you really love it and tell all your friends about it, and they're just sick and fucking tired of hearing about it.
Yeah. Can you imagine like all the recommendations he's made to people over the years?
Oh, dude, it must be. So that's the thing. Like, as someone who watches as many movies as like you and I do, we suggest things to each other, and like, I don't know if you ever watch the stuff that I suggest, and I know you don't know, like, if I do for you for the most part, but at the same time, like, I trust your suggestions.
Yeah. Not enough to watch Batman Returns, I guess.
I'm waiting to do that as an episode together. So,
well, Christmas is coming.
Ho, ho, ho. I mean, I figured I wanted the first time I talk about that movie to be with you because I know how much you love it.
I do. It's my favorite Batman movie of any Batman movie.
Even more so than the Batman Begins or The Dark Knight?
Slightly. Just a little bit.
Yeah, The Dark Knight is truly the greatest Batman movie ever made.
Yeah.
Sure, bro. No, it's actually Justice League. It's it's BVS.
It is. That's hard to top. Yeah. His appearances in Suicide Squad, I think. The best on-screen appearance of the Batman as a character.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, no, it's oh my God. Yeah. The suggestions that Tarantino has made to people over the years, they're probably having a conversation with him, and their eyes just like glaze over, just like, yeah, like the Mentats in the new Dune, just okay, just fucking leave me alone, Tarantino, please.
Yes, I will. I will see. Could you write this list down for me?
Yes, I will see werewolf motorcycles from hell. I get it, bro.
Yeah.
Fucking werewolf Nazis of the SS. Got it. All right. What else?
Yeah.
What other movie? You can't tell me about the movies that you like because then I'll know where you're ripping them off from.
Yeah. Although I gotta say, he's been a lot more open. Like he does say these are influences. Like I think I've probably said this before too, but like I think my problem with Tarantino was less about him and more about this sort of fanatical following.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know what I mean? And people
he's not a bad filmmaker. Like that's not the issue.
No, he's not. And he's to me is an example as somebody who gets better as a filmmaker. Like I think primarily at the beginning, the writing carried it. And I think he was way too influenced by fucking French New Wave bullshit and
Hong Kong crime films.
Right. But like he wasn't copying their style as far as his direction goes.
He was just copying the story. He was just copying the stories.
Yeah,
just essentially the plot beats.
Right.
Everything else but the style.
I'm just talking about his visual style.
Yeah.
I think has gotten better and better and better. Like,
I would agree with that.
Like Reservoir, the guy who directed Reservoir Dogs and the guy who directed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like are leagues, like light years apart.
How many feet separate them, you think? How many feet apart are they?
Well, so many because there's none featured in Reservoir Dogs, and it's all.
Oh my God, boy, isn't it just like
Margaret Qualley is the unlucky one in that one. Like we're going to be saddled with her dirty feet forever now, and fucking Margaret. I was about to say there's like 3, aren't there? Dakota Fanning too. Like yes.
Oh my God.
Wow. It's a cornucopia.
Perversion. I tells ya.
Yes, indeed.
I think there was a video of a woman walking up to Tarantino and asking him to sign her foot.
I'm sure that happens. Bet that happens a lot now, actually.
Rate my foot, Tarantino. Man, but does that suck though for him though? He's getting he's just constantly getting kink shamed.
Yeah. Well,
it's also he's kind of steering into it, right?
He's definitely.
Once upon a time in Hollywood, right? You said it yourself.
That was definitely him going like, "Oh, this is what you think of me. Here it is." Because we've noticed it in his movies. I don't think he's being kink shamed so much as just sort of pointing out that he's ramming it down our throat, which he's kind of been doing.
That's fair. It's like his use of the N-word. His second favorite word after fuck.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm checking my phone.
No. I just love that there's just a little piece of trivia about this movie, connecting it once again to our good friend Mike White's arch nemesis.
Yes, his definite nemesis, and yours pretty close. And for me, less now. I'm a little more on his side.
I think my issue stems from something that you mentioned, which is he is in many ways like Chris Nolan, a stupid person's idea of a smart movie maker, like someone who makes smart movies, like intelligent movies.
And I think I don't know. I think Tarantino's a little more honest than somebody like Nolan or.
Chris Nolan is up his own ass so far.
And
the farts smell great.
Mr. Dune, Dennis Villeneuve, whatever.
They're a head up. They're an anal Ouroboros, dude.
They're like so self-serious and everything.
No, but they're like up each other's asses too. Like Chris Nolan says, they're like in love with one another on top of everything else.
Only makes sense. That only makes sense to me. But like Tarantino, he's making fucking genre picks. Like ultimately, and I don't think he probably takes it seriously. You got to take it seriously if you're an actual filmmaker. But I think he knows the subject matter is a little more wacky and treats it a little bit that way. You know what I mean?
A slave out for revenge. Like it's not the serious fucking movie.
I've never gotten the sense that he was trying to say this is important, and everyone else is doing that, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, that famous interview that he did. He gives the answer of, why are you movies so violent? And he just goes, because it's fun. Like that's
right.
Because to the core of Tarantino as
movie violence is fun, and he recognizes that. So I don't know. Anyway, I gotta.
So speaking of sandboxes that we play in, where is the sandbox that you play in, Father Malone?
It can be found at fathermalone.com. That's a kind of a link tree situation to my YouTube channel and the other podcast that Chris and I do together. And we also do one with Mike White called Dreams for Sale about the Twilight Zone 85. But I would urge you towards Dark Destinations, which is my podcast. It is a half-hour radio drama that I write and produce. And I'm goddamn proud of it. Go listen to that.
It's good. I'm proud of it too, because it's good.
Thank you.
And you know what people don't say enough? Narrative podcasting is much harder than what we are doing now.
It is.
because the visual medium has the crutch of being a visual medium.
Right. I'm saddled with writing something that sounds good, and then on top of that, trying to paint a picture for you with sound.
Yeah.
Not that I'm tooting my own horn or anything, but folks, it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. And when it's done right, as your show is, it's really difficult. So yeah, as someone who has worked on a narrative show, I get it. So yeah. As for me, you can find me at cstasha.com. That's my link tree. Like Father Malone said, we've worked on some things. We finished a show entirely together. We brought it up a lot on this episode. So yeah, Chronicles from the Crypt, Tales from the Crypt, you get it. This was something you're into. We talk about an anthology show for like 30 or 40 episodes.
Yeah, so we did special. You know what? In fact, our sort of in between season episodes of Chronicles of the Crypt, if you like anthology horror movies, definitely go check those out, because that's kind of what we did in between. In between seasons, we talked about Monster Club, and we talked about the original Tales from the Crypt. We talked about Vault of Horror, and that our analysis in that is a little more in depth and a little more interesting.
And to your point, I don't think we'll ever talk about those again outside of that. So right. I'm not doing an episode on it here. So if you want to hear those, that's where you got to go. So
yeah. And I know now what to, next time you ask me to program a month, to program.
Oh,
nothing but anthology horror.
Oh, I'm game for that. So until then, Father Malone, thank you for joining me, rounding out the month that was October with something a little different, the possible origins of Giallo in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.